Improv Boost, I have this course. You're probably aware of it. It's called Leadership 101. The previous one was called Improv History and Philosophies. And if you're watching this, you get a little special added bonus because I'm pretty sure the next one's going to be about creativity and imagination. Like or innovation. I'm not quite sure. I think innovation is probably better. Like how do we become innovative in an art form that we take for granted but it isn't always, because people are trying to replicate by finding the formula that always works, or people are trying to replicate by finding by sticking to what always works because it works in class, you put it on stage kind of thing. And then it there's this theory that the last great invention in improv was the herald, and that's because people just replicate formulas, or their formats are so similar to an existing format that it's the same thing, right? So it's not that innovative. So that's just like a theory in improv. So that's why I believe my next one's going to be on creativity and innovation. I'm going to reach out to some people who I think are creative, and although have achieved a measure of success, are still trying to be innovative about improv. And I think that's would be fascinating to talk about. And then what the process of it is, and what does creativity mean, kind of thing. So that's what I think the next course is going to be on. I'll probably take a little bit of a break, and it probably won't be for another couple of weeks or so. Also, it takes time to administrate and set up these teachers and these courses anyway. So, but one thing I want to talk to you about was what the last class was on, and I had Aretha Sills, who is the daughter to Paul Sills. Now, some of you know Paul Sills. He was the co-founder of Second City. He was the co-founder of the Compass Players, considered one of the revolutionary people in improv. Him and David Shepard were really big in improv and in starting it. But even bigger than them, not bigger, but even more influential than them, is Paul Sills' mother, Aretha Sills' grandmother, Viola Spolin. Now, Viola Spolin started at Hull House, and Hull House was began by Jane Addams and Neva Boyd. Interestingly enough, I've never heard the name Jane Addams until this interview, and now I'm in love with the concept and the theory and the history and everything about Jane Addams. Okay, not everything because everyone has flaws, but I'm being dramatic. Okay, so the whole house started. So here's the thing: is Jane Addams, I guess, was very well off, and the whole house she was a community organizer. She could bring people together, and she started the whole house, which was for social reform, right? A lot of socialists, because this was after JFK's assassination and all this kind of stuff that like it just needed like there needed to be change in the world. So her and Neva Boyd were doing Hull House, which is like for social work, right? Making the world a better place kind of idea. It's at this house that Viola Spolin took classes from Neva Boyd and learned from Neva Boyd. And so Viola Spolin, and I didn't know this either, and this blows my mind, her and a group of divorced single mothers got together and started the Educational Playroom. And now I want to start a team called the Educational Playroom in honor. Like that is amazing. I love it. And this is where she started making short form games. Now, I didn't know this. Another thing I didn't know about. So there was a bunch of divorced mothers and single mothers that started this. So they had something to do with their kids and everything. It's a healthy and supportive and a very female empowered environment. And so Viola Spolin would go out and see what kids are just playing on the streets. And she'd say, hey, come in and play in this theater. She had a theater. And so she had the educational playroom. And this is what she was doing, is just teaching them theater. At first, she'd have them play whatever games they're playing outside, like if they're playing soccer or if they're playing whatever you play inside. And after they kind of tire themselves out, she would start playing these theater games, right? Start teaching them, give them scripts and those kind of stuff. Now, a lot of the kids at the time that were on the streets in the area that she was in, Aretha Sills referred to it as the slums, the bunch of kids that didn't have maybe didn't even go to school or didn't have a lot of money or whatever. So she would go and get these kids that could have ended up in gangs or worse, or all these kind of bad situations, and she would gather them up in the educational playroom, and she would teach, after they played the game, she would teach them her own theater games. Lo and behold, these theater games are the basis of short form improv. So this is where short form improv began, where these kids, a lot of them immigrants, a lot of them really what do you call it? Not very well off, right? They were they were these short form games, and a lot of the games she would make up on the spot, and these are what worked, and all this kind of stuff. And then Viola Spolin became a teacher to Paul Sills, of course, but then also was hired as a teacher at Second City. When Paul Sills left as artistic director, they fired Viola Spolin, and that's where we see the influence of Del Close. And that's why one of the reasons why I'm going to be very honest with you and be very vulnerable, that I think Del Close is overrated. Del Close did some great stuff, and he was a genius. And everyone I talked to that's worked with him said he was a genius, right? I don't doubt that. But he's not the starting point of improv, and no one should ever think that. No, he was revolutionary. He was one of the revolutionary minds for sure. But Viola Spolin is the mother of improv. So there should be less of this guru hero worship for Del Close, and there should be a lot more attention paid to Jane Addams, Neva Boyd, an art form that was began by these very powerful, empowering women. And here's some crazy stuff about Jane Addams. The first female American to win the Pulitzer Prize, co-founded the NAACP, co-founded the ACLU, and started the whole house basically started short form improv, unknowingly started short form improv, but unknowingly was the soil, was the soil bed from which short form improv could sprout. And that's amazing. And they were part of the women's suffrage because women didn't have the right to vote at this time. So it was just all this amazing stuff. If you get a chance, you should go see it. It's on the Improv Boost. Leadership 101. Watch the whole course, because the whole course I talk about commenting, which Aretha killed. Like, here's the reason why I put that concept of commenting on there. Commenting is about shared resources, right? So if there's a shared resource that everyone needs, such as like oxygen, everyone needs oxygen. Now that's an extreme, or like clean drinking water, right? And you might think that's an extreme, but then there's areas where everyone does not have access to clean drinking water because there's a regulatory body that says, here's how much clean drinking water, or you don't get drinking water until you pay this amount of money, right? So there's stuff like that that are shared resources that everybody wants. And commenting means this is common, like not rare, common. This is like the common grounds, right? And it means that everyone that gets to use this resource will then determine how this resource is being allocated. Now, that might sound like a no-brainer to you, but a majority of the time, 90% of the time, that's not the way it is. So if you want electricity, everyone uses electricity. Then you have to go to the government, or you have to go to electric company. If you want water, there's a water company, and there's a regulatory body that then doles it out, and you have to pay for a certain amount of money in order for that to happen. But then there's stuff. So that's the commenting, is that practice of there's a shared resources, and the community that uses that resource then determines how that resource is distributed, right? So here's why I put it in there. And Aretha nails it on the head, where improv is the shared resource of people who perform improv. What does that mean? That means when you're doing a long form set, everyone in that long form set has the common ground. They're commenting the story if it's a long form set. Short form, it's the games, it's the show. But that whole team is working together to redistribute that resource, which is improv, that entertainment. Like, everyone is deciding in the moment that this is being redistributed. And she said so many things that just resonated with me. It was amazing. So yeah, that was a really amazing interview. If you get the chance, I would say go see the classes, because all my classes on the Improv Boost are for free. So you just go see the classes, the Leadership 101 classes. There's also keys. It's some amazing stuff about just being a leader, being like a trendsetter, being an influencer, not being like a paid position, not being like artistic director, teacher. But she talks about how do you just be a leader, just be a leader. And one of the things is, you don't necessarily seek out to be a leader. Like, a lot of good leaders, or a lot of profound leaders, don't necessarily seek that position. They just do something and other people follow them, right? And then Brian Plumwood did some amazing stuff. So some great leaders in there. So get a chance to check that out. It's really good. But I have to say, my interview with her really inspired me. It was really, really amazing. I hope you all are doing amazing. In my neck of the woods, which is in England, in a small city in England, it looks like we just went out today, and it looks like restrictions are lifting, actually. When I say restrictions are like lifting, what I say is it looks like there was more people out. The energy of the city felt less tense, and people were kind of casually walking around. And to me, I even mentioned to my wife, like, I felt like you can feel like the city's opening up, like everything is starting to relax. And it's a process. Like, you can't flip a switch and expect everything to go back the next day. Like, it's starting to come back to that normalcy that we were used to before. Now, there's that whole theory. I get it. Some of you are going to be like, it's not going to be the same. And I'm not saying it's going to be the same, but I'm saying that businesses are reopening. I'm saying that, like, so people are socializing more. Restaurants are reopening. Public spaces are starting to relax the limitations. And it's a really interesting time. And it made me have two realizations. Just this little walk today. The first one was, I realized there was a point when this first started going down, and everything, like, very first, all the dominoes started to fall, that I realized that I started stockpiling my skills. And I thought, like, I have a lot of skills, but how many skills are like in apocalyptic level skills? Like, yeah, I know social media, but like, in an apocalypse, no one gives a shit about social media. But like, I also, like, what else do I know? I know how to make tortillas. Okay, cool. That's a food. Making a food is like an apocalyptic skill. Are there skills that I have that are like maybe mechanics or um, gardening or stuff like that that are like apocalyptic level of value. And I didn't realize. I mean, this days when I really did that in my head. I started stockpiling. What do I have that I could start selling or producing money or being of value if there was an apocalypse that would be my resource or my go-to, which is a really dark thing to think about. And I didn't realize I just naturally did it. It's all my sci-fi movies that I normally read. Black Mirror and Tales from the Loop, which is a good series. Um, but like, what do I have? What can I lean back on? So I realized that I did that. And the second thing I realized after my little walk was that I realized how much tension there was in everyday life. I realized that with things relaxing, that I felt so much more guarded. I felt so insecure in certain ways. Not insecure, like, am I a good person? But like, what's going to happen next? The unsure. And I realized that when I said realize like 17 times, and I know it, you know it, but when walking around and seeing people relaxed, I felt more secure. That is the realization or observation that I had. I hope you all are doing better. I hope that all your families are safe and sound and healthy. Um, Please, if you have any questions, let me know. If you have any comments, I'm here to listen to your comments. I'm here to interact. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.